Missiles are in the air. Oil just crossed $100 a barrel. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 1/5 of the world's entire oil supply flows every single day, is effectively closed. And somewhere on Wall Street, a trader is smiling. This is the 2026 Iran war, and tonight, the Capital Vault opens the invoice. Subscribe to the Capital Vault. Every week, we follow the money. Now, let's go inside. February 28, 2026. The United States and Israel launch a coordinated military campaign against Iran. The operation is called Epic Fury. Airstrikes hit Iranian military sites, nuclear facilities, and senior leadership across the country. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is killed. The world is watching in shock. But open your Bloomberg terminal at that exact moment, and you see something extraordinary. Lockheed Martin stock hits an all-time high, closing at $676.70, up over 4% in a single session. RTX, formerly Raytheon, jumps 4.7%. Northrop Grumman surges 6%. The broader S&P 500 is falling. Defense is rising. As CNBC reported that morning, the defense sector was, quote, a rare bright spot amid a broader market sell-off. In one single trading session, the top 3 defense contractors added a combined $25 to $30 billion in shareholder wealth. According to GovFacts, that figure is roughly equal to the entire annual Pentagon budget for military family housing. Not despite the war, because of it. And that was just day one. Since January 2026, as tensions built toward this moment, Lockheed Martin stock had already risen nearly 40%. The iShares US Aerospace and Defense ETF had gained 35% from the first US strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities in June 2025 through early March 2026. According to Responsible Statecraft, defense spending was already set to surge in 2026, and this war made it, quote, more urgent and less controversial. The defense machine was already running. The war just hit the accelerator. While defense stocks surged, something even more consequential was happening in the energy markets. Something that affects every single person on this planet who drives a car, heats their home, or buys food. On March 2nd, 2026, an Iranian Revolutionary Guard commander made a 4-word announcement that sent shockwaves through the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz, quote, is closed. The Strait of Hormuz is the narrow waterway off Iran's southern coast through which 20% of all global oil passes every single day. 20 million barrels every single day. Iran controls its northern side, and now Iran had effectively shut it. Tanker traffic dropped by 70% almost immediately. Over 150 ships anchored outside the strait to avoid attacks. As NBC News reported, this was creating what analysts called the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. The result was instant. Brent crude, which had been trading at $70 before the conflict, jumped 10 to 13% in early trading on March 2nd. By March 13th, Al Jazeera reported, Brent had hit $103 per barrel. Prices surged to nearly $120 at one point before pulling back. Iran's IRGC then issued a direct warning, quote, expect oil at $200 per barrel. Goldman Sachs warned oil could cross $100 if the disruption continued. It already had. American diesel prices rose 25% since the war began, according to the IRU. Every oil producer outside the Gulf, every American shale company in Texas, every Norwegian platform in the North Sea was collecting windfall profits on every barrel. The closure of Hormuz was their biggest pay rise in years. Here is where this story becomes genuinely disturbing. According to a detailed analysis published by Capital Trades, throughout 2025, as tensions between America and Iran were building, at least 19 members of the US House and Senate reported purchasing stock in defense companies that would directly benefit from the conflict that followed. The trades are public record, the numbers are verified, and the returns are extraordinary. Ashley Brooke Moody bought shares in Howmet Aerospace in January 2025. That position has since appreciated over 107%. A second purchase in April 2025, up over 133%. Michael McCall, who chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee, bought GE Aerospace in January 2025. That position is now up 82%. Lisa Carmela McLean added to Northrop Grumman in mid-2025, capturing gains of 43 to 52% across multiple trades. Then there is Democratic Congresswoman Kelly Morrison, who, according to Notice, invested 5 figures in Saronic Technologies, a defense contractor specializing in autonomous naval vessels, 9 days after the war began. Government ethics expert Craig Holman of Public Citizen stated directly, quote, "Members of Congress should not be allowed to play on the stock market given their access to non-public information on government operations." No charges have been filed. No specific evidence of insider trading has been proven. But as Capital Trades noted, across all disclosed transactions, the pattern is, quote, "hard to ignore." Lawmakers with oversight of foreign policy, intelligence, and defense appropriations made significant investments in companies that profit directly from prolonged conflict. The greatest threat to their portfolios? Peace. While missiles flew and oil spiked, a third financial wave was quietly building, one that most people completely missed while watching the war coverage. Gold smashed through $5,300 per ounce for the first time in history on the first day of the Iran strikes. For context, gold was trading at around $1,800 just 3 years earlier. This was not a normal safe haven move. This was a generational repricing of fear. According to CNBC, JP Morgan now predicts gold will reach $6,300 per ounce by the end of 2026. Deutsche Bank is forecasting $6,000. Every hedge fund, every sovereign wealth fund, every central bank that held gold before February 28, 2026, woke up the morning after the strikes significantly wealthier. But here is the detail that matters most for the Capital Vault's briefing. Gold does not just rise randomly during conflict. It rises because the people who manage the world's largest pools of money, central banks, sovereign wealth funds, elite hedge funds, begin moving capital from risk assets into hard assets before the shooting starts. The Global X Defense Tech ETF, which holds positions across all major defense contractors, had returned a remarkable 72.8% since April 2025, according to Motley Fool. The people who positioned in this ETF a year before the war were not lucky. They were reading the same intelligence assessments, the same diplomatic cables, the same geopolitical signals that members of Congress were receiving in their classified briefings. Smart money moves before the missiles do. Every time. Now let us talk about the number that makes everything else look small. According to reporting by Jacobin, in the weeks before launching strikes on Iran, the Trump administration had already begun planning a $500 billion increase to the Pentagon budget. The war did not create this request, the war justified it. Within days of the strikes beginning, the White House told Congress it planned to burn through $153 billion in military spending in the next year alone. A separate emergency request for an additional $50 billion was being drafted for congressional approval before the first week of the war was finished. These are not abstract numbers, they are contracts. Every single dollar of that $500 billion flows to the same companies whose executives sat in the Oval Office meeting with President Trump just days after the war began. According to Al Jazeera, those executives represented RTX, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, BAE Systems, L3 Harris, and Honeywell Aerospace. Companies, quote, sitting on billions of dollars of order backlogs, some of which dwarf the GDP of several nations. Lockheed Martin already signed a contract in January 2026 to quadruple production of THAAD interceptors, each costing $12.77 million, from 96 to 400 per year. RTX increased Patriot radar production by 25%. And those firms agreed to increase capital expenditures by 38% from 2025 levels. Morgan Stanley issued an advisory recommending investors, quote, consider increasing exposure around themes like defense, security, aerospace, and industrial resilience, where government spending can drive multi-year demand. The greatest investment bank on Wall Street was telling its clients, in plain language, buy the war. Let us close the file and state what the verified record shows. On February 28, 2026, a war began. And within hours, Lockheed Martin hit an all-time high. RTX jumped nearly 5%. Oil crossed $100. Gold broke $5,300. Congressional portfolios swelled. Defense CEOs met with the president. And a $500 billion spending request was quietly prepared. The missiles are real. The Strait of Hormuz is genuinely closed. The suffering of ordinary people, Iranian, Israeli, American, across the entire Gulf, is devastatingly real. But so is the invoice. The Financial Times called defense stocks the standout performers of the session. Responsible Statecraft said it plainly, quote, war can be good for business. And the greatest threat to defense investors, according to analysts on record, is not escalation. It is peace. History is not just made by the powerful, it is built by them. This has been the Capital Vault. Follow the money. Find the truth. Subscribe, and we keep opening the files. The vault is closed. Until next briefing.